You know, there's a lot going on in the world right now and in our country of things that don't sit right with us. Places and situations where people are being treated less than human. Places in the world where people's rights are being taken away. There are knowledge and insights from generations of scientists and scholars where that information is being threatened. And human health care and the health of the planet are under threat. Wendell Berry said, "There are no unsacred places. There are only sacred places and desecrated places." The sacred is found in whatever is worthy of our reverence and our respect. Well, I believe that all people are worthy of our reverence and respect, regardless of their skin color or their country of origin, regardless of their immigration status or their sexual orientation or gender identity. I believe that fair and free elections to be accessible to all of those who are eligible is something that we must protect and that we must care about. Humanitarian efforts for people who suffer are a sacred obligation to each and every one of us who are able to do something about it. And you know, we don't need to be told right from wrong. We already know right from wrong in here. And we know what is right and what is wrong by how it sits with our spirit, how it sits with our soul and our own divine beingness, how it sits with the God of our own being. But what happens oftentimes when there are things out in the world that tweak us, the things that don't sit right with us, what happens is we worry about them, we complain about them, we get upset by the stuff that's going on, and then we carry it on our shoulders and carry it with us through our lives. But it kind of ends there. And I think one of the reasons that it stops there is because we don't know what to do about it or what we personally can do about it. I think a second reason that it stops there and doesn't go further is because we only talk with the people who see things the way that we see them, and we don't bring it up or say anything to people who see things differently than we do because we don't want to have confrontation. Sometimes, though, we stop there because as good metaphysicians, we have been taught to only look at what we are for and to not look at what we are against or what we are not for. To put our attention on what we're for, not what we're against. But you know what, to me, that's kind of like having your check engine light come on in your car. And you don't want that light to be on. So in order to be what you're for, I'm going to get rid of the light by putting a piece of tape on my dash. But that doesn't really take care of the problem. It takes actually taking your car to a mechanic and looking at the problem and analyzing the problem in order to actually fix the problem. Just putting the tape over the light on your dashboard doesn't do anything to change the problem. And so clearly all of us spend time looking at, focusing on what we are against rather than what we're for. Every time we read the news pretty much, or read in social media the things that people are posting, that is clearly putting our attention on what we don't want. But what happens sometimes afterwards is we put that down and then we just try to pretend it's not happening, or we bury it under the rug, or we take our focus off of it. We try to forget about those situations that aren't sitting right with our soul because we don't know what to do about it. We don't know what we can do about it. And the second thing that we do sometimes is we just try to be positive. Isn't that what they teach in New Thought? Just be positive. But that doesn't really change the things that are going on either. Sometimes what happens, I think, is we confuse positivity with walking a spiritual path or living a spiritual life or living a life of spiritual integrity. So there's this thing called spiritual bypass. And sometimes when we do that, when we just try to pretend that everything's okay, or when we just try to be positive about it, we're doing spiritual bypass. And so spiritual bypassing is a way of hiding behind spirituality or spiritual practices. It prevents people from acknowledging what they are feeling and distances them from both themselves and others. Some examples of spiritual bypassing include avoiding feelings of anger, focusing only on spirituality and avoiding the present, only focusing on the positive and being overly optimistic, pretending that things are fine when they are clearly not fine, thinking that people can overcome their problems through positive thinking, or thinking that you must rise above your emotions. Spiritual bypassing is a superficial way of glossing over problems in a way that might make us feel better in the short term, but ultimately solves nothing and just leaves the problem to linger on. Because we are people who are awake to our own spiritual beingness, to our own divine nature, awake to that God that lives within us, we have a need to live in spiritual alignment. We have a need to live with spiritual integrity. That means where our actions and our words and the things that we do line up with our deeply held spiritual beliefs. Because we are awake to our own divine beingness, we have a need to stand up for the truth, the capital T truth. We have a need to give voice to that presence of God. And another name for God is love. We have a need to give voice to capital L, love. So there's a story that says, back when India was under British rule, a posh golf course was constructed in Calcutta. Monkeys who lived on the grounds developed a habit of picking up balls that were in play and throwing them. After years of trying to solve the problem by expelling the monkeys, the golf course resigned itself to the reality of the situation. Instead of trying to change the monkeys' behaviors, the course changed the rules, requiring players to, quote, play it where it lands. Wherever the monkey threw or dropped a ball, that became the place from which it had to be played, no matter how unexpected or how inconvenient. That's what we do. We start where we find ourselves. We start with what is. We come to the world from that place of spiritual integrity and from the place of what is happening right now. And so, it's not about finding your way back to who you were before all of this craziness began. It's really about finding your way forward to who it is that you are becoming because of all the things that are going on in the world. Finding your way forward into who you are still becoming. Carrie Newcomer said, in the Abrahamic story, in the Abrahamic creation story, the source says, "Let there be light." And there was light, and the light was good. But in the telling of the story, the sun and the moon are not made until the third metaphorical day. And so the question we might ask the text could be, what was the light that came into the world before there was a sun or a moon? What beautiful light infuses every good thing? And if there is such a light at the heart of all things, where is it to be found among us and around us today? That light is the light of your own soul. That light is the light of your own divine beingness. That light is the essence of who you are as a spiritual being. And your light shows up in the world, and the living spirit shows up in the world when you live in alignment and act from alignment with your spiritual values and your own spiritual essence. The living spirit expresses itself through you. That is how the living spirit shows up on this planet, through your words and your actions and your deeds. And that living spirit shows up profoundly when you are living a life that is in spiritual integrity, where you're living in alignment with your own spirit. And so the title of my message today is Living in Alignment. And I'm talking about that in today's challenging times, we are being required to live with spiritual integrity. We are being required to live in alignment with our own divine nature, with the living God within us, with spirit. We're being called to live in spiritual integrity and to give voice to that one living presence of spirit, to give voice to our own spirit, and to give voice to that capital T truth. And so I heard Father Gregory Boyle of Homeboy Industries speak a week ago. And he was talking about texting with those homeboys and how they have the shortened versions that you use in text, like OMG and those kinds of things. And one of the ones that he talks about is they are texting OHN. And that means, oh, hell no. And that is one of the new verbiages that he has picked up is, oh, hell no. And so I think that we, right now in today's world, are being invited to say, oh, hell no, to the things that don't sit right with our spirit, the things that don't sit right with the God of our own being, the things that are not in alignment with that one and only presence, the God of love. We are required and being invited to say, oh, hell no, to the things that are not in alignment with love or with oneness or with wholeness. We are being required to stand up and to say no for the things that desecrate the human spirit. And so there's been a lot of discussion amongst the ministers at Centers for Spiritual Living about a talk that Ernest Holmes did that's called Sermon by the Sea. And one of the things that he says in that talk is, show me one person who is for something and against nothing, and I will show you another Redeemer or a Christ in this world. And so there's been a lot of discussion about saying no, about putting our attention on what it is that we don't want, versus just putting our attention on what we do want. And I really believe that there are times when we must say no in order to say yes. You know, you have to say no to eating the donut and yes to eating the apple if you want to be healthy. You have to say no to eating that second piece of pie if you want to be at your ideal weight. You have to say no to spending money on trivial things if you're wanting to save money to go on a trip that you've always longed to go on. And if you're in an abusive relationship or in a job that is not fulfilling to you, you have to say no to the person you're in relationship with, or no to your boss, so that in turn you can say yes to a better life. You can say yes to the greater that is calling you and awaiting your stepping into it. And so I think we begin by connecting with our no. And I know that every single one of you has a no right now from some of the stuff that you see happening in the world. I think we connect with the no inside of us so that in turn we can connect and be led by the yes, the greater yes that is inside of us. I also think we can begin by connecting with the yes inside of us, with our own spiritual principles and values, with the essence of our spirit inside of ourselves that leads us to living the yes of our desires, but it also leads us to saying no to what doesn't match those desires. But I think you can start with the yes that leads you to the no, or you can start with the no that leads you to the yes, but either way, the no is going to be required in that equation. Ernest Holmes, the founder of this philosophy, said, all of our reactions to life are related to our spiritual convictions. I'm going to say that again. All of our reactions in life are related to our spiritual convictions. We cannot escape this. Just as a child needs to have confidence in their parents, so we all need the same confidence in the power that is greater than we are. Science, psychology, and medicine, as much as we need them, are inadequate to meet the problems of life. It is only when we feel in partnership with life that we can hope to live together in peace and harmony. It is only when we feel in partnership with life that we can live together in peace and harmony. So I have a question for you. As you live this life in partnership with spirit, partnership with life, as a partner with the God of love, what is it that God of love within you, that your own spirit, the voice of God inside of you, what are you being called to stand for in this world? What are you being called to stand for by that inner presence within you? After this is over, I invite you to spend some time thinking about that and writing about it. What are you being called for? Called to stand for? And second, what does standing in alignment with that thing that you're being called toward, called to stand for, when you are standing in alignment with that, what does that look like? What are the actions that need to happen in order for you to stand for that, stand up for that? And the third question is, what is love asking of you? With all that's happening right now, what is capital L love asking of you? So I invite you to write those things down, think about them, because that is how you live a spiritual life. That is how you walk a spiritual path. That is how you live a life of spiritual depth rather than just positive thinking. That's how you answer and heed the call of your own soul that is at the center of this path that you are walking. Parker Palmer, in his book, A Hidden Wholeness, said, "The soul is generous. It takes in the needs of the world. The soul is wise. It suffers without shutting down. The soul is hopeful. It engages the world in ways that keep opening our hearts. The soul is creative. It finds its way between realities that might defeat us and fantasies that are mere escapes. All we need do is bring down the walls that separate us from our own souls and that deprives the world of the soul's regenerative powers." And so my invitation to you is to refrain from spiritual bypassing. Refrain from pretending that everything's okay when it is clearly not okay. And as much as you listen to the news or read the news wherever you read it, on social media or some news source, as much as you listen to or read the news, listen to your own divine nature. Listen to your own soul. Listen to the call of how it is calling you to be in this world, so that you can bring your light into this world as a healing presence. Stop and listen within to Spirit calling you. What are you being called to stand for? What are you being called to do? How is love calling your name today? So find your voice, find your no, find your yes. Speak the capital T truth. Here's the thing, if you speak the capital T truth to somebody who doesn't see things the way that you see them, you're not talking about policy. You're not talking about how to change things or what is wrong in this world. You're speaking truth, like the truth that we all deserve to be cared for by each other, that we all are valuable, we are all worthy, we are all deserving, regardless of anything in the world. When you speak truth, people can hear that because the truth already resides in them. And as we do those things, we will be creating a world that reflects the good that is within us and the good that is within everyone. And so blessings to you as you walk this path of remembering who you are, of remembering your own divine nature and your own light, and bringing that into this world in the way that you uniquely are called to do. So blessings to you. And so I invite you to join me in an affirmative prayer right now as we turn our attention from this world of appearances and turn our attention to that higher truth, that place that we are always being invited to see and to recognize. And so I recognize right now that there is only one life, one beingness, one power, one presence, one love, one wholeness, that there is this presence that is present everywhere, in everything and through everything, everywhere present in its entirety. And that presence is the very activity of love and peace and wholeness and goodness and harmony and order. And that presence right now is expressing itself in me and in you. That presence is alive and well and active in every single person on this planet. And so it is as we put our attention on that we open ourselves to that truth, that we create an avenue for it to come into this world. So we are not trying to manipulate or change or fix. We are simply recognizing the truth in this moment. And so we open our hearts and we open our minds and we bask in this presence, recognizing that it is everywhere in all things, in every moment, in every situation, in every circumstance, and that it is revealing itself as the exact thing that is needed. And so I know that it is stirring in the hearts and in the minds of every person on this planet, awakening us to the truth of Spirit in us and in everyone. Spirit as the all in all. And so I release this prayer into that creative law of the universe, knowing that it is right here, unfolding itself right now for we have said yes and we have opened ourselves to that. And so we rest in that. We keep our attention on that. And we release this prayer. And I invite you to join me in saying, and so it is. And so blessings to you on this path. We'll see you soon.